Welcome to this explainer. Today, we're jumping straight into one of the most mind-boggling events in human history, the story of Pompeii. We're going to unpack a city that was literally frozen in time. We'll explore that eerie calm before the disaster, walk through the absolutely terrifying sequence of the eruption itself, and then look at the awe-inspiring modern discoveries that finally pulled this lost world back into the light. It's a massive story about everyday human life, the overwhelming power of nature, and centuries of absolute silence. So let's jump right back to the ancient Roman Empire.
Picture this. A stunning sunset casting that perfect golden hour glow over the sprawling Roman city of Pompeii. Down in the streets, it's packed. The atmosphere is totally calm, prosperous, and perfectly normal. But right there in the background, casting a massive, deep shadow over everything, is Mount Vesuvius. It's just resting quietly in the distance, a looming giant that everyone living there just sort of accepted as, a pretty part of their everyday landscape.
Now, before things took a dark turn, let's look at life in a city completely unaware of its fate.
What's really striking about Pompeii's daily life is just the vibrant humanity of it all. It's so easy for us to think of it as just a dusty archaeological site, right? But we really have to remember these were real people living real everyday lives. The streets and markets were absolutely packed. You had merchants aggressively hawking their goods, raking in their daily profits. Children were running around playing games in the open squares. And all of this was happening against a backdrop of incredibly intricate, beautiful Roman architecture. It was a thriving, breathing society that literally had no clue their entire world was about to end.
But of course, the mountain eventually wakes up, and the warning signs start to show. Nature almost always gives us warnings, doesn't it? And Vesuvius was absolutely no exception. Days before the actual eruption, animals began acting really strangely. They were sensing that subtle shift in the earth long before any human did. Then, just hours before the big event, small earthquakes started shaking homes and cracking the streets. Imagine being a citizen then. You'd be stopping dead in the market, looking around in pure confusion, maybe starting to get a little worried. And then, finally, moments before the disaster, that looming shadow we talked about earlier, it changed. Dark smoke began slowly creeping up from the volcano's peak. The tension at that exact moment must have been absolutely suffocating.
That brings us to the violent mechanics of nature, as the city gets completely buried in ash.
This chain of events is honestly as fascinating as it is terrifying. Here's how it went down. First, the violent eruption kicks off with a gigantic ash cloud exploding literally miles into the sky. It's a raw display of pure, destructive power. Then, because that massive ash cloud is so incredibly dense, it completely blocks out the sun. Total darkness falls over Pompeii right in the middle of the day, and volcanic ash starts raining down on them like a heavy, gray snow. The chaos here is just unimaginable. You have terrified people screaming, running totally blind through the streets, and then comes the final fatal blow. Massive, superheated waves of hot ash and toxic gas sweep downward, rushing through the entire city. Entire families who had desperately tried to seek shelter by locking themselves inside their homes were caught right there as their roofs collapsed under the weight.
What's really wild to wrap your head around is the horrific speed of it all. I mean, we just talked about those vibrant Roman markets, filled with playing kids and busy merchants. Yet, in just a matter of hours, we have collapsing temples and streets completely choked with ash. That heavy, fiery rain completely overwhelmed the city's structural integrity. Statues that had stood there proudly for generations just toppled over. Massive grand temples totally collapsed under the sheer, brutal weight of the volcanic debris. The contrast from morning to evening is stark, tragic, and incredibly absolute. And then, nothing. Centuries of silence before the miraculous unearthing of Pompeii.
Think about the sheer wonder of brushing away ash and suddenly revealing an entirely forgotten world. For centuries, this entire city, all of its beautiful architecture, its bustling markets, its profound tragedies, lay completely silent, buried deep beneath the earth. It was totally abandoned, completely forgotten by the world above. Time just marched on right over the untouched ground. And then you have that awe-inspiring moment centuries later, when modern archaeologists finally arrive. Meticulously, carefully, they start brushing away that very same ash, uncovering the ancient ruins hiding right there, just below the surface.
The historical weight of what they found is honestly staggering. They didn't just stumble upon some crumbled walls.
They found perfectly preserved homes with the original layouts and even the artwork still visible on the walls. They found totally intact ancient streets, complete with the actual ruts from Roman chariot wheels carved right into the stone. And of course, most emotionally haunting of all, they found the frozen human remains. As these early explorers walked through the lost city, they were forced to realize they were walking through the exact, frozen remnants of that terrifying disaster we just went over. It is, quite literally, a true time capsule.
Which actually brings us full circle. Imagine a haunting sunset over a now silent, ruined city. Picture those explorers looking out as the sun dips low, casting these deep, dramatic shadows over the newly uncovered ruins. It's the exact same sun that set over the bustling city all those centuries ago. Only now, it illuminates a ghost town, a lasting monument to a single catastrophic day in human history.
So, that leaves us with one final, incredibly powerful question. Today, Vesuvius stands silently above those ruins, looking pretty much exactly as it did right before the eruption. So, what other forgotten stories might be lying right beneath our feet? This explainer isn't just about one angry volcano. It's a stark, real-world reminder of the incredible fragility of human civilization and the enduring, silent power of nature. It really challenges us to think about history not just as some abstract textbook thing, but as real lives that were lived, lost, and sometimes miraculously found again beneath the ash. Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer. Keep asking those big questions, and I'll catch you next time.